I'm with Lindsey Dixon today. Hi, Lindsey.
Hi Angela, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
I'm so happy to have Lindsey today. Lindsey's a functional nutritional therapy practitioner. She holds a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. She's the mother of two beautiful now adult children and has a long professional career, including 3 years in the Royal Australian Army Survey Corps. Currently, Lindsey's practicing in the area of education and health promotion. Despite becoming ill in her 20s and having many physical and emotional setbacks along the way, she has never given up on her journey and is now working to instill this kind of positivity into others.
Yeah, I kind of get quite emotional, really, about helping people because I know how important it is for myself to have been helped along the way. And, you know, that those people in my life that have gone out of their way to understand when your body stops functioning the way it should, you know, and they support you. I started my menses at a very young age and had all sorts of issues with acne and premenstrual syndrome. I suffered terribly with a lot of pain, which developed into a diagnosis of endometriosis and adenomyosis. So it was like the autoimmune thing was starting to come into play quite early on in my life. But when I say early on, so this is like in my late 20s. So after I'd done my army, my 3 years in the army, I came back to Western Australia and I had my children, and then things started to plague me. Yeah, so eventually I got a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis. So it was throughout my body, muscles, joints, all sorts of flare-ups. Energy was just completely sapped due to pain. You know, and it got progressively worse. I was getting problems with my eyes, with my bladder, with my breasts. I was lactating. There was all sorts of things going on with my body. So it came to a point, I had the knowledge, you know, around medicines as well. Came to a point where I decided for myself it was best for me, because I knew that the medicines were going to kill me in the end. I decided no more. I thought, well, you know, I could go down that track or I can come off them, and it's my choice. So I actually came off them cold turkey about 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Pretty much cold turkey. I mean, I had some support. You know, kept a few anti-inflammatories going where necessary, and a little bit of pain relief where necessary, just to, you know, make life bearable, really. And did a lot of investigating, a lot of time for me. And that's really, that happened sort of probably 5 years before I started with NTA. You know, when I really, really delved deep into my studies and finding another way for me. And, you know, you get all inspired because you can see that things start working for you. You know, I knew early on that it had a lot to do with the vagus nerve. You know, that really sort of rang alarm bells to me. But I was all over the place because there's so much to know and so much to learn. And I wanted to know it all. I wanted to make sure that I was on the right track, you know. I do believe that it's got a huge amount to do with the autonomic nervous system, because it's an absolutely complex system. and it is quite easily put off balance because it's so complex, and all it would take is something quite small to trigger a reaction through all those enzymes and pathways and synapses, and because the autonomic nervous system it's actually mind-boggling. It's a communication system that is, even our microbiome communicate with it through the enteric nervous system. So it's very complex, and I think that it's key to a lot of our issues today. There's two parts. There's the dorsal tract, which is very primitive, and there's the ventral vagal tract, which is above the diaphragm. It's your heart and your lungs, the dorsal's below. And that ventral vagal response is social connections, and it's a very refined system. And that's the system that I think breaks down, because a lot of people move away from not being able to nurture it anymore. It's like putting the brakes on your car while you're driving, it's stressful. It's your body trying to bring down the sympathetic nervous system, parasympathy. But it's done in a haphazard way, because you're not listening to your body anymore. You've got to a point in your life, too many stressors, and the stresses don't have to be big. They can be quite small. Your body still reacts to them in the same way as a fight and flight, as if you're being attacked by that saber-toothed tiger. So you go into this fight or flight mode, or you freeze. So it's almost like the baseline is coming up, and you think you're relaxing, you're coming down, but you're not coming back down to the bottom. You're only coming halfway. And you think you're relaxed. A lot of people think, and I did for a long time, I felt that my body was not having any issues with stress. I thought I was quite relaxed and calm and all this sort of stuff. But it sort of creeps into your world without your knowledge, really, because you don't realise until you go to maybe a situation where you're with a lot of people, and there might not be people and feel comfortable around. And all of a sudden you realise you feel very stressed. Yeah. And that's just a little situation. You shouldn't be stressed. And then you suddenly realise you've got a problem.
Can you talk a little bit about how cortisol is made, and then also what some of its functions are?
The parasympathetic nervous system, there's two branches. There's the somatic and the autonomic nervous system. And then with the autonomic nervous system, you've got sympathetic and parasympathetic. Now, so when you go into a sympathetic reaction, that's your fight and flight reaction or freeze. And cortisol is one of the hormones that's produced. There's adrenaline, norepinephrine, and cortisol. It does a lot of things to the body. It holds on fat around your abdominal organs, because it's the body's way of retrieving energy for later, in that stress response. It causes your body to slow down metabolically, metabolic syndrome, diabetes type 2, all of those sort of conditions, because you're continuously being stressed, and cortisol is being pumped out. Another thing it does is it interferes with your sleep. It's a terrible thing. It stops you going into deep sleep. And deep sleep is such a requirement for recovery of the brain in particular. So the brain is being stressed as well. And there's a big connection between the brain and the gut, that communication system, which that is what the vagus nerve does. It connects the brain to the enteric nervous system and also to the peripheral nervous system. So there's branches all the way through the body. It's huge. So this continual stress response with cortisol producing a situation where the vagal system is not being used as much. So it loses its tone and it loses its ability to maintain balance and homeostasis, which is what the autonomic nervous system is there for. Why do they have this abundance of cortisol? Everyone's different. We're all so very different, but the stresses, I guess, of today, there's so many different stresses. I mean, you think about, this is another area I've been looking at lately, is light and EMFs, you know, that in itself is a stress. Blue light, not going out in the morning light, in the morning sun to wake up properly, and then being exposed to too much blue light in the evening, so you're continually awakening the system, you're not able to sleep at night. Going to work for some people is a stress, but they don't see it as a stress. Extreme heat, extreme cold is a stress. But we need to learn how to deal with stresses. Even not stopping to breathe properly is a stress on our body.
I'm guilty of that one. That's like, I'll be going throughout the day doing something and I'll realize that I'm like half holding my breath.
Yeah. Or you're tense, aren't you? It's like, and all of a sudden you feel this like sharp pain between your shoulder blades because you've been constantly at it, and that is a stress. That is your body saying, pain, you know, stop what you're doing, this is not right, you need to move. Movement is so important, I believe it, and getting out there in the open air, out there in the fresh air. Stagnating and confining yourself to space is a stress on the body. And I find when I go outside, I actually catch myself smiling, you know, I catch myself enjoying the moment, you know. People aren't getting out into the world, they're not getting out into nature, they're not grounding themselves. I'm completely amazed at what it does for me. Anyway, if I get out on a daily basis compared to if I stagnate and spend too much time studying or whatever, before I know it, my body's screaming out. It's a very simple message, is to just listen to your body.
Let's talk a little bit about going clear up into that, you know, parasympathetic of the nervous system, and then not being able to
bring yourself back down. Can we hit on nutrition a bit, maybe?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's a system that relies upon so many nutrients and being available. That's, you know, when you're in continual stress and producing so much cortisol and whatnot, you are using up all those resources for all the wrong reasons, you know. So, of course, it is a system that relies upon enzymes, synapses, neurotransmitters, you know, chemicals to transport the signals. And it relies upon the communication of even between the microbiome to those chemicals to make the synapses, to make the, you know, that message gets sent to the brain, and then that brain to send the message back to the body. So that system is just completely out of balance when all these little things happen, and the resource of nutrition is completely being demolished. It's having an effect on our gut, on the enterocytes of our gut are not getting nutrition. The microbiome is being replaced by baddies. It's not communicating well in that department. So then it has an effect, also an impact on digestion. a big impact on digestion, because the first thing that seems to drop in a lot of people is their stomach acid production. And it's also the fact that they can't get back down to rest and digest. So they're continuously in that state of go, go, go. So it's a roller coaster at first, and then it gets to a stage where there's complete apathy and lack of tone, and that's when it gets really hard. And I think that's what happened to me. I got to a point where it's really difficult to tone my vagal system, because I have many physical stresses as well as emotional stresses all the way through life. And then medicines, things like steroids, which are renowned for causing the body to lose muscle tone, and everything becomes floppy, and you gain a lot of weight because your body has no energy, and it's just one thing after another. So once you lose vagal tone, it's for some people really hard to get back.
What are some of the problems you start to see when that gets out of balance?
A lot of them are sort of to do, I guess, with the gastrointestinal system in a big part of it, and also psychological. There seems to be a big connection between the gut and the brain, and so you've got a majority. You'll have this group of people who start to feel that depression, anxiety are creeping in.
Okay.
Inability to control their feelings. So it has a huge psychological component, huge. And then you'll have people that respond with their immune system absolutely plummeting or overreacting. It's also huge when it comes to inflammation, because of the cytokines that are being produced. You've had that traumatic life, you've had 2 or 3 different events that were traumatic and are really hard to deal with. Then your body will react in that way. You end up with things, a dysbiosis in your gut. Some people just may notice with the things like H. pylori creeps in, and they get gastroesophageal reflux disorder. They start getting having trouble going to sleep at night because everything's gurgling up the system. Then you've got people that might suffer with thrush and candida. And, obviously there are other things that impact those things happening. But it can be just a simple dysbiosis from stress.
Really, it just makes you susceptible to a whole range of things.
Yes, it does. Stress is huge, and people don't realise that those little things can be what actually starts that roller coaster. And nutrition is so important to keeping that system in balance. So important. Digestion, nutrition. Well, first of all, I think it's really a matter of getting variety. And a lot of people, though, are struggling with that because they managed to get themselves in a situation of inflammation in their gut to the point that it's causing allergies and sensitivities. So a lot of people are struggling with variety, and also finding whole food sources that are locally produced, biodynamic, organic, whatever you want, that is clean from pesticides, clean from chemical involvement, that's going to have an effect on your microbiome. So the nutrition has to be peak nutrition. It has to be away from processed foods and chemicals. And So just thinking about, is this from the ground? You know, has this been in good soil? Soil with lots of microbiome of its own, you know, that's not got any chemicals and rubbish in it. That's so important. Like, you can have organic that's got nothing in it, you know. It's organic because it's got no chemicals, but it's still got no microbiome in the soil. So that's what biodynamic's all about. And so the key is looking for local sources, knowing what your sources are, what they've used, and keeping things in season, you know, seasonally produced fruit and vegetables. And as far as the whole animal heme protein and we'll go down that road too. It's so important, is that you know where your animals are sourced from too, that they are predominantly eating what they should be eating, not being given corn diets. And, you know, I mean, obviously there's times when they need to be, you know, like we have a drought situation in Australia, and, you know, so they do get fed hay and, you know, other sources, but predominantly our beef cattle graze the bush, and they're eating just from the ground, which is fantastic. That's what we want.
I don't think that people consider that enough, honestly, that, you know, when people who, like in America, there's all these studies right now, and it's kind of controversial. If you are eating, you know, meat, they're seeing that there are kind of some correlated negative health effects with that. And I think that the quality of that is very important. Most of the meat in the US is not very cleanly sourced. So for me, I don't like to make the meat the culprit. I like to point out that clean sourcing to people instead.
Yeah, exactly. We can't guarantee a lot of our sources, you know, and we look at the labels and we think, is that for real, or is that just trying to get me to buy it, you know? You know, it's hard, but I think you can taste the difference, you know. I really do. Yeah. So it's just a matter of playing around until you find something, you know, how it looks, you know, when you open up the packet, and how it smells, and how it tastes, and how, it's just, and also it's really important when you look at seafood as well. That's the same, you know, has it come from, they actually have farms out there in the ocean where they're fed pellets, you know. So you just want to find out too whether it's, and what ocean it's come from, and there's so many things to, I mean, you can download applications to figure out what the best sources of these things are. So, yeah, doing all that research and making sure that everything is as clean as it can possibly be.
I want to just go back to movement for a little while, because I know that you really love movement, and that's kind of one of the next steps in your journey is you're going to learn to teach yoga, right?
Yeah, I can't wait. So this month, I'm just sort of starting to do more yoga. But next month I start my training course. Yeah, February.
Awesome.
So I'm looking forward to that. I just think it's so important to bring those stress levels down too. Yoga can be, there's so many different styles of yoga. I mean, you can be quite energetic with it if you want to up, you know, and do some really strong exercise, you can. It just builds muscle tone throughout your body. It's incredible. Yeah, again, movement is so important. It's particularly important for the gastrointestinal system. You know, movement helps move the food through the system. It's really quite a big part of it, is your way of allowing those muscle systems, the smooth muscle in particular, to move properly, and that's surrounding the whole of the colon, you know.
Wow.
So But also lack of movement causes a person to go into like apathy states. They start to internalise, start thinking negative thoughts. So the psychiatry behind lack of movement, is so important to move every day. Move every day to lift the spirits. Not only that, too, it has an impact on sleep. I find that I sleep so much better if I move every day. If I'm knuckling down to a project and I neglect to move every day, my sleep is and also because your mind is buzzing on that project, the impact of not having sleep can build up very quickly on your body. And the detox systems are they plummet. You just don't refresh your mind. You don't, the lymph drainage system is significantly reduced when movement is reduced. And that's our way of detoxifying the body as well. It's another part of our immune system as well. But as I said before, going outside and connecting with the world and nature, it gives you that sparkle. It just makes you feel alive and happy. And I mean, only yesterday I went for a walk up here and it was raining and I was walking in the rain with a big smile on my face. It's just, that's what it does. It makes you feel good.
I don't know if it's different over there, but like here in the States, movement is just exercise. I mean, that's like the definition of it. And it's just so about weight loss and fitness and not as much about health.
Sorry. Yeah, I get it. And I used to be a real fitness junkie, but I think that's a stress in itself. I really do. You're stressing your body to the max when you do this stuff. I believe in high intensity training to a degree. I think it's important to get your heart rate up and to allow it to come back down again. It's important to get that thing happening. But you've got to be, I think, in the right frame of mind to be doing that. And I don't think you need to do it every day. Even if you did it once a week would be enough. I concentrate on exercise that you enjoy. And you're more likely to do it if you enjoy it, aren't you? Getting in the pool with music is one of my favourites. I just move around the pool like I'm one of those synchronised swimming,
There you go.
Dancing in the water. I do running in the water, to get my heart rate up because my joints are pretty sore and inflamed often, so I prefer to protect them, So I'll do the running in the water and I find that's not stressful. I quite enjoy it because I mix it.
Where can people find you if they want to work with you?
I have got a couple of pages on Facebook and I do have an Instagram account and I do regular posts on those. So I keep them going daily. I am connected for appointments through those systems as well.
Do the posts so people can just go find them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. I so appreciate that you took the time to do this. We are obviously on like super different time zones.
Yeah.
So, getting it arranged and put together so it worked for everybody took a little bit of doing, but I so appreciate that you did it, and it was so great for me to meet you. I've learned a ton. So thank you so much, Lindsey.
Thank you, Angela, for having me. It's been great. I mean, I'm not a good talker online. I'm trying to develop that. So thank you for stressing my boundaries a little bit.
You're